There were a bunch of debates since our last show on the Democratic side. There was a debate on the Republican side. We don't need to get into all of the minutia. The big thing I got from it was this moment where Republican presidential candidate Marco Rubio, he seemed to sort of have like a malfunction. If you think of the Marco Rubio robot, he seemed to have a big malfunction where he was stuck on repeat and he repeated the same line 3 or 4 times. He was in a sort of talking point coma, and he was destroyed by New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. There was a conversation where Chris Christie pushed back against Marco Rubio saying, listen, Marco, you just vote on stuff in the Senate or you don't. I actually ran a state and I was an administrator and I know how to get stuff done. Now, this is a debate that goes on between governors and senators all the time, but Marco Rubio really got destroyed here. Let's look at the first clip here. This is Marco Rubio's first answer where he repeats this talking point about the notion that President Obama doesn't know what he's doing. And then I will play for you immediately Chris Christie's brutal takedown of Marco Rubio. Take a look.
And let's dispel once and for all with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. Barack Obama is undertaking a systematic effort to change this country, to make America more like the rest of the world.
Okay, and then we can continue, Lewis, because I think we had as part of that clip Christie's answer, right?
The fact is, Marco, you shouldn't compare yourself to Joe Biden, and you shouldn't say that that's what we're doing. Here's exactly what we're doing. You have not been involved in a consequential decision where you had to be held accountable. You just simply haven't. And the fact is, when you talk about Hezbollah Sanctions Act that you list as one of your accomplishments and just did, you weren't even there to vote for it. That's not leadership, that's truancy.
So just a brutal takedown there. So now it goes back to Marco Rubio, and you think, oh, he's going to come up with something, right? He's going to come up with some way to get himself back propped up. No, he just repeats the exact same answer again.
We don't need to add to it by electing someone who has experience at running up and destroying the credit rating of his state. But I would add this. Let's dispel with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He is trying to change this country. He wants America to become more like the rest of the world. We don't want to be like the rest of the world. We want to be the United States of America. And when I'm elected president, this will become, once again, the single greatest nation in the history of the world, not the disaster Barack Obama has imposed upon us.
Senator Rubio, thank you. I do want to bring in Governor Bush on this.
Hold on
because you've
second.
made this.
Excuse me.
If you'd like to respond to economic...
I think he directly mentioned me in my record in there, so I think I get a chance to respond. You see, everybody, I want the people at home to think about this. That's what Washington, D.C. does. The drive-by shot at the beginning with incorrect and incomplete information, and then the memorized 25-second speech that is exactly what his advisors gave him. See, Marco, the thing is this. When you're president of the United States, when you're a governor of a state, the memorized 30-second speech where you talk about how great America is at the end of it doesn't solve one problem for one person.
Lewis, brutal takedown. What is wrong with Marco Rubio just repeating the same thing about Obama, and then Chris Christie absolutely just flattening him? And this is not a joke about Chris Christie or anything like that. Just flattening the rhetoric from Marco Rubio here, making him look really bad.
You don't see that very often. I
No.
mean, you see talking points recited in different ways.
Right.
That's very common. But I mean, word for word.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
So now it goes back to Rubio. Rubio finally, right, he's going to get a chance to say something else and really push back against Chris Christie. No, he said the same thing again.
Got hit by a massive snowstorm 2 weeks ago. You didn't even want to go back. They had to shame you into going back. And then you stayed there for 36 hours, and then he left and came back to campaign. See, those are the facts. Here's the bottom line. This notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing is just not
There
true.
it is.
He knows exactly what he's
the
doing.
memorized 25-second speech.
Well, that's the reason
everybody.
why this campaign is so important. Because I think this notion, I think this is an important point. We have to understand what we're going through here. We are not facing a president that doesn't know what he's doing. He knows what he is doing. That's why he's done the things he's done. That's why we have a president that passed Obamacare and the stimulus. All this damage he's done to America is deliberate. This is a president that's trying to redefine this country. That's why this election is truly a referendum on our identity as a nation, as a people. Our future is at stake. This election is not about the past.
Yes, he really seemed in over his head here. I mean, Marco Rubio is going to need a fire hose to keep himself hydrated in a debate against Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. Those little sips of water he's finding it necessary to take during Republican debates, he's going to need to be covered. He's going to need to be dumping buckets of water on his head because he really, really looked in over his head here.
Yeah, well, maybe a cold bucket of water might have snapped him out of that coma he was in.
Talking point coma.
And apart from the very strange reciting of this whatever, what is the point of running your entire primary campaign against Obama?
Exactly.
You have a stage full of opponents here.
Exactly.
You're not doing yourself any favors.
And his big criticism, his completely unrelated and repetitive criticism was that President Obama knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, what a scathing critique of President Obama here. Politicians repeat talking points. We're sort of used to this, and there are reasons where it's beneficial. You don't want to get trapped into reasoning that is not good for you, or you want to appear to stay on message. This was Marco Rubio in an almost deer in the headlights way, completely unable to figure out what to do and panicking as Christie just takes shot after shot at him and really embarrassing him and making him look really unqualified to be president, which of course he is. We know that.
Yeah, and so voters now can ask themselves, every time I saw him perform well on stage, was that just something that was memorized, that he executed well? He executed his plan well.
And he's known for appearing the most rehearsed, and I've been saying it since the beginning. Marco Rubio seems the most rehearsed. We'll see if it hurts him in tomorrow's New Hampshire primary. Very, very bizarre. The servos going haywire on the Marco Rubio robot in a spectacular fashion. No question about it. Okay, this is really big news. The FBI has confirmed what has been sort of suspected and assumed for a long time, which is that, yes, they are looking into Hillary Clinton's email server. Back in August, the FBI said they could neither confirm nor deny, or at least that they would not confirm nor deny the existence of an investigation. And then a letter, which we now have, dated February 2nd and filed in court just yesterday, quotes the FBI's general counsel, James Baker, saying that the FBI acknowledges generally that it is working on matters related to former Secretary Clinton's use of a private email server, although he goes on to say the FBI is not currently acknowledging the specific focus, scope, or potential targets of any such proceedings. Now, there is obvious concern that this could impact her candidacy if Hillary Clinton is the nominee. Just the reality that there is an investigation into her email server will be used against her. The Democrat who's being investigated by the FBI is going to be the sort of talking point, Lewis. And aside from the specifics of what they're investigating, and aside from what the investigation ultimately finds, saying one of the two candidates is being investigated by the FBI, that is negative PR. There is absolutely no doubt about that.
It's, of course. Hillary would never, okay, it can't possibly help. It's a terrible thing. The Republicans are going to use it. And it's something that Bernie Sanders could use too. Not to say that Bernie Sanders would accuse her of doing anything malicious or intentionally compromising our security.
Yeah, he's sick of her damn emails.
He's probably sick of her damn emails, but it could be a huge distraction. And would it be enough to bring her down?
It depends. I mean, I think the key thing is we need to dispel with this notion that the FBI doesn't know what it's doing. They know exactly what they're doing. And as I channel Marco Rubio, what I mean by that is, yeah, the FBI is investigating. They believe that there is at least the possibility that a crime has been committed. But along those lines, this doesn't necessarily mean a crime by Hillary Clinton. We know that her email server was likely compromised, including by the hacking done by other countries. That could be the focus or scope of the investigation. We know that she claims, at least, that she didn't publicly email out information that was classified to a certain extent, but the level of classification has changed on some pieces of information. My point is, The FBI, by acknowledging this, is actually raising more questions than they answer, in the sense that we have no clue what the scope is of this investigation. And the investigation is of the email server, not only of Hillary Clinton specifically. It's bad PR. Republicans are going to jump all over it. But as normal, reasonable people, we don't yet know what this is all about specifically.
No, we don't. But that's not going to stop anyone from jumping to conclusions and making accusations.
And that's why it's particularly important that the FBI move quickly and either charge Hillary Clinton with something if they believe that she committed a crime, or say we officially found no evidence of wrongdoing and this stops here. Because I think we need to dispel with this notion that Hillary Clinton didn't know exactly what she was doing and she was being advised. So I think that that's a notion we need to dispel with as soon as the dispelling can be done.
Thank you, Mr. Rubio. Yeah.
Seriously, though, they need to charge her or say we're not charging, right?
Yeah, but these things take time.
Okay.
I mean, we could have this go on for another few months before they say anything like that.
And the longer it goes on, potentially the more damaging that it would be to a Hillary Clinton candidacy. Again, yesterday we said just because Hillary Clinton being a woman is not a reason alone to support her. Hillary Clinton having her server investigated by the FBI is not a reason not to support her. But at some point, the pragmatic realities of how an investigation that we now know exists, dragging on for months, could impact her candidacy needs to be considered by everybody if we're going to think about what is best for the Democratic Party, for the more progressive of the candidates that are up there. These are real questions, no question about it, if indeed she ends up being the nominee. More Marco Rubio news from yesterday in New Hampshire. Everybody's in New Hampshire doing stump speeches and going to diners and appearing to tolerate eating at a greasy spoon diner and ordering a turkey club, something many of these candidates would never be caught dead doing if it weren't for trying to appear like men of the people. So yesterday, Marco Rubio goes to the Puritan Backroom Diner. Sounds like just a great place to go and have a couple of drinks. He was stumping for tonight's primary election, and he comes across a table with two men and a woman, and they're sitting there, they're having a meal, and the two men were a couple, a gay couple. And according to the New York Times, one of the men, Timothy Kierstead, said to Rubio, "Why do you want to put me back in the closet?" And Rubio responded, "I don't. You can live any way you want. I just believe marriage is between one man and one woman," which is so confusing to me, because if living however you want is having a legal marriage to the person you love, then Marco Rubio is kind of saying you can live however you want as long as what you want isn't to be married. And they got into a little bit of an exchange, and eventually Marco Rubio walked away. I'm going to play the video for you, which we have here. You'll notice both Rubio and someone whose arm comes in from off camera, they seem very interested in pulling Marco Rubio's kid out of this. Because, I mean, Lewis, if you even hear that there are gay people, that can ruin your life, as we know. If you see a breast, as we learned from Janet Jackson's Super Bowl performance, that could be the end for millions of children. So you got to keep them away from that. We'll play the video, we can listen to it, we can watch it, and then we'll talk about it.
When you separate church and state,
Sure, we're not going to have a religion,
but you're not separating it due to I'm a gay man. I'm already married. Have been for a long time, and you want to say we don't matter.
no, I just believe marriage is between one man and one woman.
But that's your belief, not half the country.
Well, I think that's what the law should be. And if you disagree, you should have the law changed by the legislature. But I believe that
The law already has.
I respect your view. Thank you.
Yeah, typical politician walk away when you got it.
So the key thing here is the following. When Marco Rubio says the law should be changed by a legislature, what he's implying, Lewis, is that, hey, the Supreme Court came down out of nowhere, and without actually having legislative authority, they said, okay, now gay marriage is legal. But that's not the case. There was a ban on gay marriage passed by a legislature, which was appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that that was a bad law. When Marco Rubio and others say, listen, I don't have a problem with gay marriage, but you've got to do it through the legislature. You can't have the Supreme Court making law. The Supreme Court didn't make a law. The Supreme Court said, okay, here is a law that a legislature made, and we decide whether this is a good law or a bad law. This is not a valid law. It's a trick that these guys use.
Yeah, it was already legal for that to happen. And then states decided that they were going to ban it. And, right. So this guy's right. And I understand why Rubio walked away. He really has nothing to gain by standing there and
it was a no-win.
Debating with this guy.
Yeah.
But the guy made some great points.
Also, let's remember that New Hampshire already had legal same-sex marriage, completely aside from the Supreme Court decision that ultimately brought legal gay marriage to the entire country. So sort of a strange thing, Marco Rubio saying, on the one hand, you can live however you want, but on the other hand, there should be laws passed that would take away that choice from the same person. But at the same time, it must be a legislature that does it, not the Supreme Court, even though it was actually the Supreme Court who just decided whether a legislature's law was okay or wasn't okay. This is the exact type of thing that hopefully is going away because gay marriage, or as I call it, marriage, is increasingly uncontroversial. But apparently with some, including those who are sort of on the religious right, it's still an issue that they care about, which is crazy to me.
And for many of those people, the only issue they care about.
Yeah, absolutely bizarre. Make sure to discuss this issue with us on our Reddit discussion forum. That's davidpakman.com/REDDIT. We are also on Facebook, where we are heading towards 50,000 Facebook likes. Help get us one closer. Go to davidpakman.com/David Pakman Show. It is New Hampshire primary day. We will be back with plenty more right after this. I'm back from New Hampshire. I will have interviews from voters in New Hampshire that I did last night for you a little bit later today. The big news on the Democratic side, if you haven't heard, Bernie Sanders has won by a lot the second primary election in New Hampshire. Of course, marginally losing by a very small amount in Iowa to Hillary Clinton. And now we have amazing results from New Hampshire to share with you. A significant defeat against Hillary Clinton. We will talk about it in context, but first let's look just at the numbers from yesterday and compare them to the polling numbers that we had going in. Bernie Sanders coming away yesterday with a 60 to about 38 win over Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders besting Hillary Clinton by just under 22 percentage points. Now, how did this compare with the polling going in? Well, the Real Clear Politics average of polls going in had Bernie Sanders at 54% and Hillary Clinton at 41%. So while Bernie Sanders was projected to win New Hampshire by 13 percentage points, he overperformed the polls by 8.3% and coming away with nearly a 22 percentage point victory. In Iowa, Bernie Sanders also overperformed the polls by 4.6%. So what can we take away from this election, Lewis? We can't take away, as I told you yesterday, that Bernie Sanders is going to be the Democratic nominee, because as we know, dating back 50 years, the new winner of the Democratic New Hampshire primary is only the nominee just over 50% of the time. So we can't say that right now. We also can't say that Bernie Sanders is going to come away with a victory in the upcoming primaries in Nevada and South Carolina. What we can say is that in the two primaries we have had so far, caucus and primary in Iowa and New Hampshire respectively, Bernie Sanders' support has been understated by the polls going into the primaries. And that is the most important takeaway, Lewis. As we look now at the polling coming out of Nevada and South Carolina, we have to remember that Bernie Sanders has been getting more support than what the polls have said, and that's a really important thing.
Yes, I guess there's also something to be said about New Hampshire voters, and that is that they seem to not decide who they're voting for until the day of voting or the day before.
Yeah, a lot of people we talked to saying, I decided today or yesterday, which was interesting. And in spite of that, Bernie Sanders winning handily among just about every group. Let's take a look at the different categories and cross sections where Bernie Sanders did really well yesterday. Bernie Sanders won among both men and women. Bernie Sanders defeated Hillary Clinton among all age groups except those over 65 years of age. Bernie Sanders won among all education groups, going to people who have not even graduated high school to people who have advanced degrees. And Bernie Sanders won among all income groups except those making over $200,000 a year. I cannot forget this key point. In spite of the fact Bernie Sanders trounced Hillary Clinton in yesterday's primary in New Hampshire, Hillary Clinton will reportedly still come away with more delegates because there are 32 total delegates in New Hampshire. 24 of these are pledged delegates based on the results of the primary. There are 8 unpledged superdelegates. And based on those expectations, we expect, Lewis, that Hillary Clinton will still get more delegates out of New Hampshire than Bernie Sanders in spite of losing by 22 percentage points. Maybe the superdelegate system is broken.
Broken. It's as if it ever made sense in the first place.
Right.
I mean, why does it exist? You can tell me historically why it exists, and that's irrelevant today. So we need to do away with it. I mean, I think we probably both agree that we should do away with the electoral college system as well.
There are really strong arguments for doing away with the electoral college, and we've talked about them before, and we will again between now and the eventual general election. So we finally made it up to New Hampshire yesterday on the day of the primary. We spoke to Hillary supporters. We spoke to Rubio supporters. I spoke to a fantastic Trump supporter. I'll play that interview later today for you. I want to start with 2 interviews I did with supporters of Hillary Clinton. And the big thing for me in talking to Hillary supporters, Lewis, was why did they choose Hillary over Bernie? If they are progressive, is Bernie too progressive for them? Are they just confused about who to vote for? And what we very quickly found out was that a lot of people were confused about why they voted for Hillary Clinton instead of Bernie Sanders. First is my interview with a woman who says she is just very loyal to Hillary Clinton, but she couldn't really explain on the issues why Hillary is a better choice for her than Bernie Sanders. Let's take a look at that interview first. Was there any particular issue that moved you towards Hillary Clinton?
I'm just very loyal to her. I've been loyal to her for over 8 years now, so I'm very loyal.
Are there particular issues where you disagree with Bernie Sanders?
Not necessarily, but Hillary is who, my loyalty lies, and that's who I was going to vote for from day one.
And why do you feel so loyal to Hillary Clinton?
Hillary Clinton was very helpful to me. I was trying to pass New Hampshire state law and United States federal law in memory of my daughter, and she was somebody who sponsored the law for me, known as Michelle's Law.
And when you thought about your vote today, was there any issue where, in spite of your support for Hillary Clinton, you don't necessarily agree with her?
No, not really.
You agree with her on basically everything?
About everything that she says, yes, I do.
$12 minimum wage instead of $15?
Any minimum wage that goes up is a good thing. Minimum wage, unfortunately, people who make minimum wage, it's just never enough. It's never enough. They still live, a very basic life. They can't afford a lot of things, So what are we going to do? We have to come up with jobs. Is minimum wage even good enough anymore? We have to do something to.
So if it were up to you, you would go with a $15 instead of $12.
I would go with more than that if I could, but it's not my business.
But it wasn't enough to sway you towards Bernie, who supports a $15 minimum wage.
No.
All right, thank you very much. Sort of unusual, right, Lewis? I mean, very clearly loves Hillary, but it's not even really clear that Hillary is the best candidate for her based on actual issues. This is really a concern to me.
I've talked to other people who have the same feelings about Hillary. They just think that she's special for some reason, or they like her on a personal level for one reason or another. And that seems to be their priority when it comes to voting.
Then I spoke to another Hillary Clinton supporter who, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Lewis, but he basically came up with Hillary Clinton is nice. I mean, it was unclear whether there was any policy reason whatsoever for his support of Hillary over Bernie Sanders.
That's what I came away from this one with. He just likes Hillary. She's nice. It's her time. I guess some people think that because she has invested so much time in government and held all these positions, that she just has to be the one. And don't get me wrong, her qualifications are great, but shouldn't it be about policy?
I believe that it should be about policy. Let's take a look at this interview. Any particular issue that really pushed you towards Hillary?
Not really any particular issue. I just believe that, it's her time. It's, she's been trying to do this for a long time. I believe her attitude is, what we need she is what we need for this country.
What about her attitude, in your mind, makes her what we need?
Just her go-to attitude that she wants to do things. She wants to help us. She wants to help people who want to do stuff. She just wants to help people. She's a very, for the most part, kind-hearted, I guess you should say.
And are there particular people she wants to help, in your mind?
That one is a hard question to answer.
What issue, is there a specific political issue you really agree with her on?
With the supporting Planned Parenthood, all that stuff, I believe Planned Parenthood is a good thing in this country. Despite what people may think, it does provide a bunch of women's health services and prevention services and things like that.
And does Bernie Sanders support Planned Parenthood?
I believe so.
So that wasn't a difference maker, right?
That wasn't a difference maker. That's just something that I really like.
What was really the difference maker for you that helped you to choose Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, other than just that she's kind?
I mean, her attitude, she's... I really can't put it into words. I just really, really like her attitude, really just like what she does. And
anything about Bernie Sanders you don't like?
I mean, I couldn't tell you. It's been a long day, I'm kind of tired.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. Okay, so that was basically every interview with Hillary supporters was like this. I'm sure that there were Hillary supporters who were very focused on the issues, but we certainly had a hard time finding them. And that was a little bit of a concern, particularly in thinking about South Carolina and Nevada in the Democratic side. And then my last interview from last night in New Hampshire, I spoke to a Donald Trump supporter, and it was everything we could all imagine it would be. How do you figure out as an independent which primary you want to vote in? How did you decide anyway?
Because I'm sick of the same, what's going on. Both candidates, Bernie and Trump, opened up a sleeping giant here in the country, and we had it with the establishment. We need people that's going to work for us, that care about us. And right now, that's why, politics today, especially today's, look around you, it's amazing what's going on here today.
But how did that get you to the Republican primary today?
How did it get me today?
Yeah, in other words, as an independent, you could have voted in the Democratic or the Republican.
I understand. That was the guy, I'm just sick of the same stuff.
Trump is the guy, you're saying?
Empty promises. Empty promises.
And Donald, so you voted for Trump today?
I vote for Trump because a lot of people don't have to like him, but you have to respect what he's doing. He's paying for his own campaign. I heard he only spent less than $3 million. And
chump change, right?
Yeah, to him, yeah. But he's a media genius, so he knows how to capitalize. And that's smart thinking. So use that, and if he's going to use that to run in the country, that's very important too as well. I mean, okay. I got invited to see Rubio today because I know a gentleman here who's sponsoring him. And I went in, I didn't vote for him, but he's a good guy. He's a future. His time is not now. He's a good guy. I respect the guy, but his time is not now. He's the future of the Republicans. If he doesn't do it this term, he might do it the next.
So let's dig in. Broken promises, you said.
Yeah.
What promises specifically upset you?
Just like with, national health care. We should have some form of national health, even though I do have health insurance.
But who promised national health care?
Originally, I think it was Bill Clinton initially, way back in the day. I remember him saying that when I was younger. I remember him saying that.
And that got you today to vote for Donald Trump.
Obamacare is an absolute farce. There's people that don't want to pay it because they can't afford it. And we should have a national health care system like England and Canada. We should.
Do you know which candidate supports that?
Bernie Sanders, I believe.
But you didn't vote for Bernie.
I didn't. But Trump said it. He would do it too, but he never came out with an initial plan. Bernie didn't either. But the fact that they're mentioning it,
Well, Bernie did say he supports Medicare for all. He's put forward a plan for that. Other than health care, what issue got you voting for Trump today?
I think we need leadership in this country. Someone who stands up for strength is very important. Strength, and also just the country lost its respect.
Who doesn't respect the U.S. now?
What's going on? Obviously China. Could I say Russia? I don't know. Putin said he respects Trump. I think because Putin respects leadership and strength. That's how he works. So I think right now, those two countries, there's some other countries as well. We need strength in this country. And I like Bernie Sanders too, but I think he's kind of unrealistic with some of his socialism. Only works to certain countries.
Is it realistic?
I don't like the word socialism. I don't like that word, how they use that.
I'm curious, is it realistic to ban Muslims from traveling to the U.S., for example?
No, but that's how Donald Trump talks, okay? But he knows it's certain parts of the region. The problem is, listen, racial profiling, and people want to talk a lot. We're all accused of it. You've discriminated against somebody by the way you look.
I'm accused of racial profiling on an almost daily basis. You should see what goes on with me.
Absolutely. But here's the deal. Does it mean they're bad? No. You have to. But if you know in your heart, if something's wrong, go with your heart and your instincts.
All right.
Sorry, but
a ringing endorsement for Donald Trump here. Thank you. I really appreciate speaking to you.
That is all the time I have today. No time for voicemail. On today's bonus show, an 11-year-old murders an 8-year-old over puppies. I will also talk about the Twitter Trust and Safety Council. Will it do anything? What is it supposed to do? And we will discuss biopesticides being used to fight lampreys. All of those stories and more on today's bonus show. DavidPakman.com/membership. Tomorrow will be a great show, but it doesn't have to end today. Continue on the bonus show. All right, back in New Hampshire yesterday, I was in the middle of interviewing a very reasonable John Kasich supporter when a random guy enters the frame and just inserts himself into the shot. So I did what I could and started talking to the guy. Take a look at this.
What was the key driver that led you to Kasich instead of any of the other candidates?
He's got a lot of experience. He also had, you get a lot of other candidates to say outrageous things and that kind of boost their poll numbers. But with John Kasich, he had a more solid plan. I really like this idea of increasing defense spending, but focusing a lot more on research and redoing the procurement. That was really useful to me because I'm going into national security as a field, and so that was definitely my biggest issue.
How does that sound to you, sir?
Very good.
All right. If it weren't Kasich, who was your second choice?
Ooh, second choice, probably Christie. Again, because of his strong stance on security. I do wish that a lot of the candidates would focus a lot more, listen to what the president and his generals are saying about climate change and how that is probably one of the biggest threats. But, if you had to vote for, at least on the Republican side, which I was looking for, he'd definitely be my second bet.
I'll tell you, you sound more like a liberal to me. You're making a lot of sense to me. You really, really are. He's making sense, isn't he?
Yes, it is, but he hasn't heard me.
No.
And I wasn't.
Talk to you now.
Okay.
Who did you vote for?
What do you mean, who did I vote for? I voted for me.
You voted for yourself.
I'm running for office, but he doesn't even know me because if you read this, you'll see what I have to offer. I have a lot more to offer than any of them, but I like that person, but I also like Huckabee.
Are you interested in reviewing this gentleman's paperwork?
Sure.
It sounds like he would love to see, but the thing is, he already voted. That's the problem.
Okay, I'm going to create an injunction and stop this whole process because I wasn't given equal time. None of the MSNBC wouldn't give me equal time. The group out front wouldn't give me equal time. Also, the rabbis, wouldn't get equal time.
Well, if anybody, the rabbis should be giving you equal time, I would say.
No, they didn't. The news people didn't give the rabbis equal time.
If anybody, the rabbis should be getting equal time.
I'll stand next to them 1,000% because the Zionists are screwing up Israel.
See, now that's where we're not going to agree. But let's pause it there here in New Hampshire. 2 voters here. Very, very interesting.
Super unusual, right, Lewis? I mean, the guy was, afterwards, he kept saying he was going to have the entire New Hampshire primary redone. And I said, hey, by all means, if you can do it, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, this guy just seems completely crazy. No other way to describe it.
I have a great story here about Donald Trump. You're really going to like this. So the backstory is a few days ago, Donald Trump went into a steakhouse and he committed a culinary abortion. Okay, he ordered a steak well done. He reportedly had a $54 bone-in ribeye and he ordered the thing well done, Lewis, squeezing every bit of flavor out of that bone-in ribeye. Normally a great cut of meat. Total disaster. The foodie world was in a whirlwind from which Donald Trump is lucky to have recovered. Okay, Donald Trump wins New Hampshire. He heads down to South Carolina. The most nuanced and subtle heckler that I've ever seen was over Donald Trump's left shoulder, and he put on a show. I was watching this on CNN, and segment producer Noah Ferguson also caught it, and he put the clips together for us. You'll notice over Trump's left shoulder, the man holding this sign about steak. He is Massachusetts native Zach Etkind. Let's take a look at the first video here, Lewis. decked out in Patriots gear, New England Patriots gear. You'll see he's sort of hanging out there. He's got the sunglasses. He's starting to make faces, sort of impersonating Donald Trump's faces, looking around in a confused way, and up comes the sign. And the only regret is you can't really read the sign that easily because of the coloring, but it says, "Trump likes his steak well done." And then he was on national television for over an hour, Lewis, mocking Donald Trump, popping up back there, looking confused. We'll look at another clip here where he is very clearly now wearing the sunglasses, doing the Trump face. He's wearing the Patriots jacket. He's popping bubble gestures and making finger points and all sorts of stuff. And this is, it's so brilliantly nuanced and subtle that I guess nobody came out and moved the guy, waving, making the bubble popping references, which Donald Trump is talking about in the speech. It's just absolutely fantastic. And then he continued to hang out right there. If he was 2 seats to his left, there's no prank, right? I mean, I don't know where this guy lives. I know he's from Massachusetts. If he travels down to South Carolina and gets moved 2 seats to his left, there is no prank whatsoever. But he is perfectly placed over Trump's left shoulder so that he is just there impersonating Trump, doing the Trump grin and the lip pursing and the entire thing. And what I will tell you, Lewis, is that later in the speech, he got either some combination of tired and bored, and he started pretending to sleep. And this is where it just really got great, taking his sunglasses off and looking as if though he is completely asleep, except for the occasional cheering motion that he does with his left hand.
It's like the finger. It's like the finger pointing, the Donald Trump signature finger pointing.
Exactly. He is mimicking Donald Trump there, but appearing to sleep during the entire thing. This is fantastic. I mean, what I love this. And you know, it's great. Hecklers are funny sometimes, and it's interesting to see the trolling go on. This is so nuanced and subtle. The only downside is the sign was hard to read because it was basically, it looked almost like just a marker outline on a piece of paper. And if the sign had been more clear, this would have just been terrific. I mean, I love it.
Yep, and the Patriots gear really makes you blend in well because it's red, white, and blue.
It looks like you're just a pro-USA patriot, right? Yeah.
It's just all American and really just fantastic, effective, and brilliant trolling.
I did notice that the Trump campaign is doing it wrong. They didn't strategically position any token minorities on camera, which is, you're supposed to do that, right?
Well, there's this, I don't know, if you look right here, there's this Asian fellow, and I think that's probably about it.
Yeah, so a big mistake there. A lost opportunity for them. They put a troll on national TV instead of like a token minority that they could sort of use to create the impression that Donald Trump is catalyzing anything other than white voters in any significant way. Missed opportunity there. Loved the nuanced trolling. We have a fantastic program for you today. Let's take a quick break, and then we will continue